This is the 2024 Toyota Land Cruiser 1958, meaning that it is the base version of the Toyota Land Cruiser. And is it enough with all the features that we have here compared to the higher trim levels? In my opinion, I think this is the best one to go with. All you need to do is just switch out the wheels and tires to some beefier vibes and you have yourself a great Land Cruiser. I personally think a lot more manufacturers should do this and just remove a lot of the luxuries and comforts that you don't really need, bring the price down and create something cool like this. So what we're gonna do in this video is have a look at this design from a front, side and rear, the interior, and then last but not least, we're gonna take it for a drive. Now, before we go in and talk about this beautiful design of the 1958 2024 Toyota Land Cruiser in Meteor Shower, you can actually only get this in 3 different colors. You can get it in this gray, you can get it in white or in black. Personally, I would probably go for this one. I think it's a more natural color and also shows off the body lines nicely. So under the hood, no more 5.7 liter naturally aspirated V8 like we had in the old Land Cruiser, of course. This being a iForce Max 2.4 liter turbo with an E motor. You have 326 horsepower, 465 pound-feet of torque. Not bad at all. Connected to an 8-speed automatic transmission. You also have 4-wheel drive. 0 to 60 takes about 7.8 seconds with a top speed of 105 miles per hour. Fuel economy comes in at 22 city, 25 highway, and the price for this one, with a couple of options that I'm going to talk about in a minute, comes out at $60,790. This is also capable of towing up to 6,000 pounds. You have a locking center differential. You have no disconnecting sway bar in this one, since this is in fact the base model. The ground clearance comes in at about 8 inches. You have a 17.9 gallon fuel tank. It's going to give you about 410 miles of range. Now, talking about some of the options that we have for this specific Land Cruiser 1958. For example, we have the optional roof rack up top. That's a $1,400 option. You have skid plates in the front and also skid plates for the transmission, also an option. And the last option for this one is the rock rails that you see right here on the sides. And that's pretty much it. It's a very basic spec Land Cruiser, and I honestly like it a lot. As I said, I do think we need more base specs like this. It doesn't have all the bells and whistles, and also, you know, brings up the price a lot. This is my personal preference when it comes to the Land Cruiser. I'd go for this one, but I would obviously switch out a couple of things, specifically when it comes to the wheel and tire setup. Now, as you know, the Land Cruiser comes in 2 different variants in the front end design. You have the round headlights like we have right here, and then in the middle trim you do have the squared off headlights. I'm not sure which one I prefer though. I think these sort of look maybe a little bit more retro. What I like here though is that everything is still LED. We have the LED around in the daytime run lights right here, as you can see, with the headlight inside. I like this chamfer on the inside of the headlight as well, this silver piece right here. And as you can see, the indicators are obviously, of course, also LED. Nice chamfers going around the entire piece here. And this is not painted in the 1958 because this is, again, the base spec. So this is all just regular plastic here. We have an LED fog light down there and some functional air slots here on the sides. We also have the Heritage grille, something that you definitely need to have on the Land Cruiser. I just think it looks a lot better to have this Toyota spelled out instead of having a Toyota logo in the middle. This is the only way to go for the Land Cruiser. Completely open up top here and also open it down low for proper cooling. And as I said, this has the optional skid plate right there underneath, looking beautiful, and also of course helps protect everything underneath the truck when you're taking this on the trails. I love this line that we have going in the hood. The hood design itself and the overall shape for this looks a lot more boxier than the previous generation, and I love that. This is what I wanted to see coming back for Toyota, specifically when you have beautiful lines like this and you have this plastic up top here. Now, coming around to the side view, a couple of things here that I would like to change for this specific one is, if you look at the wheel and tire setup, we do have the 18-inch wheels here, but the tires themselves, these ones are definitely something that I would 100% switch out, because these look like regular road tires and it doesn't suit the overall design that we have, the boxy shape that we have. Looking at the side mirrors, again, very squared off, as you can see, all black plastic. We have a nice beautiful side indicator here, completely in LED, and we also don't have the 360 camera here for the 1958 edition. Love the shoulder line. Again, very sharp and crisp design. You can see right here, shoulder line cutting in from the corner of the indicator here, or the headlight unit, right through all the way back. And let's see where he goes in, and swings up here, creates a nice chamfer going on the roof as well. Beautifully done, looking fantastic here out in the sun. And we also have, of course, the optional rock sliders down below. And again, 8-inch of ground clearance should be sufficient, but if you want more, you can always lift it up, of course, or you can also put just some beefier tires on. That should help with that as well. Like this line as well, because what this does, it just carves out some of this volume that we have going on in the lower section, creating a bit more athletic look for this design. Now coming around to the rear view, and again, thankfully we have full LED lights going on here with these stunning chamfers around every single key graphics in the back. You can open up the window here separately if you want to do that. Just press this little button here in the corner, and that's what's opening up the top half of the rear end. And you can also, of course, open up the whole thing. It's not power assisted here though, which is totally fine. Again, I don't need stuff like that. It's not something that is essential for what I need this for. But you can see, since we have the hybrid setup, you're going to have this very high floor, which obviously is going to take up some of the storage space, but you have a little bit more storage underneath here. And in addition to that, you also have a house outlet and a couple of cup holders back here as well, something that Toyota did not remove, even though we don't have a third row seat here. But you can see we have some USBs on both sides, which is still great. You can still use these USBs for the rear passengers right there. And also 60-40 split, fold it down to get a lot more space back here. So let's fold this back down. Again, no power assist for this. Looking at the wiper here, situated right in the middle, which is, again, I don't mind this because this is such a rugged and functional looking design that I don't really need to hide it up here. Now checking out the design of the taillights, very retro style for this. Beautiful LED here, daytime run lights being this, and you also have this bar down here, this rectangle, and you have the reverse light right in the middle. Just a beautiful feature for both the headlights when you have the round headlights, and I also like these square ones. And again, coming back here, you also have this retro vibe coming back in the back with these beautiful taillights. You have the iForce Max badge right there, Toyota Heritage badge in the middle again, and blacked out Land Cruiser badge in gloss black on the left side. All the way down low, you can see that we do have sort of an exposed exhaust pipes. It look like it's been no, it's actually supposed to look like that. As you can see, they have a bit of a curvature here. You can see that someone has previously scratched this going over some trails, but I mean, that is what this is for, and that is why you don't want to have this piece neither in the front or in the back being painted. You have the parking sensors integrated right here in the back as well. Now, we talked about the exterior design. As I said, I love it. I also like what's going on here in the interior, even though this again is the base spec. You can see everything is blacked out, a lot of hard plastic on here, which is again totally fine for me if they bring down the price. You can see we have a plastic door handle here, looks pretty cheap, but it's functional. That's all I care about. You have the window controls here, and of course the mirror controls, in addition to some storage down below, and one single cup holder. Look at the seats. It's been a while since I saw cloth seats like this, but these are actually very comfortable seats, and I think this also adds to this retro vibe that I love to see in the Land Cruiser. So let's jump in here, let's fire this up. There are some changes here interior wise as well, of course, comparing it to the higher trim levels. The first thing you're gonna notice is that we do have a much smaller screen. So we have a 7-inch gauge cluster here. You have, it's just this small piece that is the actual gauge cluster. It is configurable by using these buttons right here on the sides. You can see that we have a bunch of different informations for the middle part and configure this exactly like you want it to look. You have the fuel gauge on the right side and the temp gauge on the left side. Now looking at the infotainment screen, this is where it gets a little, maybe not ugly, but it looks like it's supposed to be a bigger screen here. So in the higher trim levels, you do get a 12.3-inch gauge cluster. You also get a 12.3-inch infotainment screen. In this case, we have a 7-inch gauge cluster and an 8-inch infotainment screen, and this looks a lot smaller than what I'm used to seeing in Toyotas these days, specifically with the big 14-inch screens. But again, 8 inches for this is totally fine. The good news is, the only thing I care about here is that we do have wireless Apple CarPlay, which is fantastic to see. Other than that, it's a very, very basic layout. If you've been in a Toyota in the recent five years or so, you're gonna recognize all the settings and stuff that we have going on in here. You can adjust the climate in here if you want to do that, but the good news is we still have an array of buttons down here to adjust that as well. You can go into music or media, or you can also put in the full map with this button up there. But again, I would probably always use Apple CarPlay for this car. Overall, I mean, the layout in here, you still have the same rugged feel and design that you get for the exterior design. I like that we have a housing for the gauge cluster, soft touch material on the passenger side, but up here it's hard plastic, but nobody's ever gonna touch this area anyway, so it doesn't bother me at all. You have the nice looking vents integrated here, in addition to heated seats in 3 different levels. You also have the heated steering wheel button right here on the right side, and these toggles for the climate control settings, which is all I want to see. I'm not a very complicated person when it comes to features and luxuries for cars. I honestly prefer, specifically when you have a Land Cruiser, supposed to be a little basic, but the ride is supposed to also needs to be on point. You have the drive mode select here. We have 3 different drive modes: Sport, Normal, or Eco. I just like to keep it in Eco. You have the drive modes here button and the ECT second. This means electronically controlled transmission, 2nd generation. If you click this button, the transmission itself is gonna feel what type of surface you're on, and instead of having manual drive modes, it's just gonna figure it out itself. You have the crawl mode button right there. Putting it into reverse, as I said, we don't have the 360 camera here, which again, maybe it could be useful for you know, when you take it on trails, but other than that, it's okay. It's super grainy though, but I can still see if there is a car behind me that I'm not going to reverse into it. You can also go into the manual mode here, up and down shifts like that. 3 USB-Cs. We don't have a wireless charger. That is probably something, if it's an option for this, I would pay maybe a couple of $100 to just have a wireless charger here, but of course you can still plug it in with the wire, with a USB cable. Couple of cup holders here. Parking brake. You have traction control off and the locking center diff. So you have rear locker if you just want to lock the rear, or you can lock the center diff as well. Switch from 4-wheel high to 4-wheel low using this toggle here. This is what the key looks like. Pretty basic looking key. Very basic looking key. Hard plastic. You only have lock and unlock and the panic button right there. So extremely basic spec for the 1958. Now looking at the steering wheel, decent looking steering wheel. Again, I like that we have the Toyota spelled out instead of the logo in the middle. We have the cruise control settings on the right side and the controls to configure the gauge cluster on the left side, in addition to the voice command button and the volume knob. We have the indicator stalk on the left side right here and the washer stalk on the right side. Pretty standard stuff. No sunroof in here, and I don't want a sunroof in this. I prefer to have it just solid like this. Looking at the armrest, pretty hard armrest. I wish this was a little bit softer. Open it up, we're gonna have plenty of storage down here. Not the biggest storage compartment, but it's definitely big enough for this type of vehicles. And again, these cloth seats, love these seats. They're heated. I don't need ventilated seats, and it also gives this retro vibe that I love to see across the entire layout of this car. Of course, last but not least, we do have a glove box right there. So with that said, let's put it into park and let's jump back and check out the back seat. If I can find fit behind my own driving position, being 6'1", 6'2". So checking out the back seat here. Again, very, very simplistic and basic looking door. Cloth comes back in the back, of course. Jumping in here, we do have 3 climate zones in this car. Even though it is a basic spec, you still have climate zones. One climate zone back here for the back seats, which is great to see. Fan speed on and off, up and down right here, temperature, and you have a couple of USB-Cs in addition to a 12-volt cigarette outlet. And if we fold down the center armrest, we are going to find ourselves 2 cup holders right here. When it comes to the space, sitting behind my own driving position, absolutely fantastic leg room, as you can see. Headroom totally fine as well. And this is what you get when you have this boxy shape that you have for the new Land Cruiser. I mean, it's just a great vehicle. And again, if I were to buy a Land Cruiser today, I would go for the 1958 and just switch out the wheel and tire setup. Alrighty guys, let's take the 2024 Toyota Land Cruiser 1958, the base model, for a drive. Let me show you why I think this is the Land Cruiser to go with, because the ride quality, the ride comfort in here is extremely comfortable. I mean, would you expect anything else from a Land Cruiser? Probably not. I love the comfort that we have here, even though probably the tires that are more road tires help with the comfort. I would still switch them out to some more aggressive, a little bit more off-road tires, because it just makes sense to me to have those instead of these very weak looking tires that we have on here right now. It just goes well with the rest of the design that we have here. So stepping on it, there we go, 8-speed automatic, inline 4, i4's 326 horsepower, 465 pound-feet of torque. The torque number is great, and that is thanks to this e-motor that we have. Also gives you a lot of torque from the very low rev range. You don't have to wait a lot for it to kick in. But it's definitely not a quick SUV, and honestly, I don't think anybody cares about that. I mean, 0 to 60 in what, 7.7 seconds, something like that. 0 to 60, if you're buying a Land Cruiser, you don't really care about the 0 to 60 times. What you care about, though, is this, the locking, rear and center locking diff that we have. We have 4-wheel high, 4-wheel low. We have the drive modes. I'm surprised to see that we don't have an off-road drive mode. Instead, we have Eco, Normal, and Sport. And Sport, just again, this is one of these cars that, why would you need a sport mode in a Toyota Land Cruiser? Just does not make sense to me. But the reason why I would pick this one, the base 1958, is, as we talked about in this video, it has everything that I want. I love these cloth seats. They feel like they came straight out of the 90s, and they're so comfortable too. They're heated, don't really care for ventilated seats. We have a 8-inch infotainment screen. This looks pretty cheap though. I mean, the plastic that goes on here, it's like they took the 12.3-inch gauge cluster and slapped in the 8 here, and then they figured we need to cover up the excess edges from the 12.3 in some way, and they just added this black plastic here that does not feel very high-end. But do I care about that either? No, not really. I like that we have Land Cruiser stamped here in this hard plastic. Interesting that we have hard plastic here, but we have soft plastic up top. Very interesting to see. So this has everything that I personally need from a Land Cruiser. I care about the comfort, I care about the off-road capabilities with some better tires, of course, in this case. Also looks a lot better. And we have sort of decent fuel economy. I mean, 22 city, it's not bad, and that is thanks to the e-motor again. We're gonna step on to the highway here and see how this handles in about 65, 70 if we have a lot of wind noise, road noise, and stuff like that, since we have this boxy shape that we have for the current Land Cruiser, which, by the way, looks great. I love this design with the chamfers that we have going all across this car. It's just a beautiful looking SUV. All right, guys, coming on to the highway here. Let's floor it. We're going downhill now. And we're up to 70 right there. So it's not, I mean, it's got enough power for what you need it to do. And in cases like this, when you have an off-road SUV, what you really care about more than the horsepower is, of course, the torque and we have plenty of torque, as we talked about already. So going here, cruising along in 70 miles per hour on the highway, I got no complaints whatsoever. We do have a little bit of wind noise, as would be expected from this boxy design that we have going on here. And this is definitely a vehicle I would not have any problems whatsoever just stepping in here and cruising along, going cross country in this vehicle. So overall, I think Toyota's done a great job with the styling. And I also love that they dropped 2 different front ends for the Land Cruiser. So you can choose, do you like the more retro square style for the headlights, or do you like these round ones? That is a very tough question. I'm honestly not sure which one I like the best, but I do like both of them. And of course, I love the fact that they dropped the 1958 version and just removed some of this super techy stuff and luxury features, because that's more of a Lexus design to me, a Lexus car. You want to have, a Toyota should always have it, every single model. For me, I always want to see a very stripped down basic version, and that's exactly what we get here. So well done, Toyota, and thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next video.